is it about the power rock trio that sets it apart from other formations in rock bands? Why is it that that triangle of tone is just so great? I think about all those great power rock trios. What was it about with Grand Funk that you just love that power rock trio?
Well, we put it together, based on, Jimi Hendrix and
Yeah.
Cream and
Yep.
Blue Cheer and those bands that were out at that time. And they were blues bands, really, that just cranked it up and put it on steroids. And we were, the Pack, that was the band before
Yep.
Grand Funk. We were kind of a Detroit R&B band, and so we took our R&B, stuff and cranked it up on steroids. And the reason that it's kind of cool is because you only got three guys, and people aren't stepping all over each other's toes. And
Yeah.
if you're in that jam kind of format, everybody's filling up space. The guitar player's filling up space, the bass player's filling up space, and the drummer's filling up space. So, because you don't have a keyboard player, you don't have a second guitar player, you don't have so you're filling up all that space, and it's kind of, it's cool. You're kind of, it's free. You're kind of free to do what you want to, and that went very well with what radio was into back then, FM Underground. It was all experimental. It was like, it doesn't matter if the song goes on for 8 minutes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the song changes tempos and goes through all these different movements. I mean, now everything is just cookie cutter.
Yeah,
It's just
there's a
totally
formula
cookie
now,
cutter.
and it's kind of weird.
Well, it's been that way since
Yeah.
the 80s. It was
Maybe
formula
like a
rock,
mathematical beat formula. It's kind of, you know what I mean? Where
Oh, sure. They've got it. Everybody plays with a click track, and nobody's in the studio together anymore. Everybody's, sitting in their bedroom, with their laptop, and they're, putting down a track, and then they send it over to somebody else, and he puts down his part, and then it send it to somebody else. I mean, it's just yuck.
Well, I was thinking too with the power rock trio. The two things I love about it is that it creates this really intimate pocket, and it also eliminates the margin of error between the note playing. Like it's just you up there. Like you can't hide, you can't lean on anybody.
Yeah, and you can't hide anything. I mean, it's all right out there. It's all you're totally exposed.
I recently did an interview with Wayne Kramer of the MC5, and they just got nominated once again for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This is their third nomination. In my opinion, they should have been in there years ago. Same thing with Grand Funk. Why is Grand Funk Railroad not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
It's a political deal. Rolling Stone magazine controls the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
They started it. And all of the groups and all of the artists that that were always Rolling Stone magazine darlings are in there. And they're kind of running out of people to go to anymore. So maybe eventually it'll happen. We were never one of the Rolling Stone magazine darlings. They hated us. They hated our manager Terry Knight. Terry Knight, he would flip them off, and he would ban them from our interviews. And he just totally had no respect for Rolling Stone whatsoever. And his philosophy was bad publicity is good publicity. It doesn't matter. So. Anyway, so they just hated us, And so we've been on the low rung of the totem pole when it comes to that kind of stuff, and I presume it may be the same for many more years. I don't know. They've started to ease it up now. As I said, they finally let Kiss in.
Well, it's like they're finally listening to the general public that got so mad that people like the MC5 and people like Yes were not nominated, let alone be in. But.
Well, like I say, I think they're running out of people to go to.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's just kind of it. I mean, for me as a rock and roll, journalist and someone who just adores a lot of this music, it's like, why is this is a no-brainer. Grand Funk, I mean, just stats alone should be in there, I mean, records sold and things like that, but Wayne,
well, if you listen to a lot of the other groups, Van Halen, if you listen to Prince, I mean, it goes on and on. The guys in Foreigner, with Luke Graham. I mean, all of those guys have stated, that Grand Funk was a huge influence on them. And that's, it's really, to me, that that says a lot. So if you're influencing the future generations of music, that should be enough to get you into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, I think that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Wayne said too that, like, Rolling Stone hated the MC5, but it doesn't matter because they loved what they made for music, and it's all about the fans at the end of the day.
I'd like to agree with him, but I don't.
Yeah. But with that too, I mean, what does that say about the quality of rock that was coming out of Detroit? You think about, the Stooges and Grand Funk and MC5. I mean, I know all about the Southern migration with the auto industry that brought a lot of that music up there. Yeah. But what does that say about that period of time where it just seemed like every band was running on all cylinders in Detroit and Greater Michigan?
Well, there was a competition. I mean, we were a little outside of that Detroit thing. We were more of a Michigan band.
Yeah.
We would play all of the other towns. When it came to Detroit, there was definitely a clique thing going on, with all of the musicians and all of the bands. But it was a competition. It really was, I mean, when we couldn't make it in Michigan. We ended up having to leave, and we made it in Georgia and Alabama and Texas and all of those places before anybody in Michigan, would even pay attention to us. And then all of a sudden, those guys, that's a Detroit band, And I've always said, no, we were never a Detroit band.
Yeah.
We're from Flint. Well, that little town above Detroit, and nobody cared about us back then, But anyway, I mean, it was a competition. It really was, and it was. It did have an edge to it. Everything had an edge to it, and it was. It's just that factory worker. All of our dads and probably a lot of the mothers were, they were working in the factories, So I think that's where it came from. Yeah.
Are you still living in Michigan these days?
I live in Florida.
Oh, Florida. Okay. Have you been back up to Flint recently at all, or do you still get back up there?
Oh yeah, my family is. I've still got family up there, and I was unfortunately my sister passed away this past summer, and I made quite a few trips up there. Yeah, but I've been up there. Yeah.
What is it like for you to see it these days? I mean, Flint's definitely one of those things that shows you both extreme spectrums of the American dream.
It certainly has deteriorated, like a lot of other towns, across the country, and there's nothing there to bring people back. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I'm surprised that it's actually done as well as it has, considering that the auto industry has pretty much pulled out of there.
Yeah.
All of the tool and die shops that used to supply the factories have had to close up and pull out, and a lot of the jobs were shipped to Mexico, because of the unions. It was a heavy union town, it's a shame, and of course the water thing is just like inexcusable.
Yeah, that was a whole mess. Good Lord,
that was a mess. And I don't blame. Totally, I don't blame necessarily the guy that actually did it. Pulled the switch. Yeah. I mean, it goes all the way up to the governor.
Yeah.
The governor of Michigan. What he knew about it before they did it. And it was just a stupid thing to do. I mean, I don't understand how that can happen in this day and age, but it did.
Is it hard to see a place like Flint, where it is today, and I guess in terms of like when you were young, when you were a teenager, I mean that was one of the glorified towns of just industry in this country, but
yeah, but it was always a rough town.
Yeah,
it was never like I mean there was one little area where all of the big houses were, but the rest of it was a real working class, lower middle class kind of place, and it's surrounded by farms,
Yeah.
I mean it was all farms around outside of Flint. But I grew up in a little town right outside Flint named Swartz Creek, which was a little farming community. It was just a sweet little town, really. My mother was a school teacher there, and so yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, Flint has never been, never been a wonderful town.
Well, my final question is, what is a life performing and creating music and traveling the world and meeting all kinds of people? What does that taught you about what it means to be a human being?
It's pretty awesome. I'm truly blessed. I got to tell you that I've been able to do this. My entire life, and I'm still doing it. And now I can get out on stage and I start singing these songs, Some Kind of Wonderful, and I'm Your Captain, Closer to Home, and you can see grandparents and parents and kids and grandkids that all know the words to your songs, and it's just like, wow, that's truly amazing. When I was a kid in my basement in Swartz Creek, Michigan, putting my first band together, that's what I dreamed of, but I really never dreamed it would happen, and so, yes, it's pretty amazing.
Well, a little quick side question that you mentioned that, what are some of the challenges or maybe advantages of being a drummer that sings? I was always curious about that, the whole, like you and Don Henley and Levon Helm, and it just seems like that's a really difficult thing to carry the beat but also sing the lead.
I always was from the very first band that I ever started. I was always one of the singers. I would sing some of the lead stuff. I would always sing backup. I actually in the very first band I played in the Jazz Masters. I would stand up and sing and play at the same time. I'd stand up behind the kit rather than sit.
Wow.
So as it was really. I was learning to sing and play drums at the same time. If I would have learned to play drums and played that for years, and then somebody would have said, all right, now I want you to sing.
Yeah.
Wow, it would have been impossible, But when you learn it all as kind of a unit, that it always, you're learning that coordination right from the get-go, so it's not so difficult. And it does. It takes a lot of finesse, and it takes a lot of, you have to control your breathing and, that kind of stuff, so, but once you have it, you've got it, it's kind of like riding a bike, once you get going at it, it's, there you go.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much.